We continue our coverage of the housing crisis now, following up on work by Patrick Lohman at the news outlet Source New Mexico. He's been focused on the most vulnerable, like people living in extended stay motels where some landlords effectively bully them out of their rooms, and often illegal move, or people who can't find a landlord who will accept Section 8 housing vouchers that pay a large chunk of the rent for some low-income earners. Hey, Michael, I'm always interested in the public health angle for issues like this. It's more than just the people experiencing homelessness or unstable housing situations who are affected, isn't it?
Well, and a lot of the research really clearly, as we've had previous conversations about this, that housing is really one of the most critical elements for anybody's long-term or short-term as well as long-term stability. I mean, and I think most of us can appreciate the fact that if we were in those shoes, we would be challenged in so many ways.
Yep.
So yeah, it's critical, and it's really again, it's a systems issue across the board with COVID and homelessness and crime and a whole host of other issues, including domestic violence.
Right. Hey, Michael, a lot of protests out there. People believe housing is a right, right? And is that the way you see it as well? And if that's the foundational place we're coming from, how do we design programs that fit that idea?
Well, I think that at this point in time, there are many. Again, Albuquerque is not the only one dealing with this issue. It's a national issue.
Right.
You look at the rate of homelessness in LA County, and I think everyone is struggling to really try and figure out what is the best remedy. And to tell you the truth, at this point, I really can't offer a solution. I wish I could. It wouldn't be an issue, I guess, if I could.
I hear that. Daniel, it feels to me like the problem is just a wave beginning to crest when you look at it. New Mexico hasn't done a great job of figuring out how to address the homeless crisis. Are we in trouble here on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in trouble in Albuquerque. I don't think all of New Mexico's in trouble.
Okay.
We seem to be a situation. Obviously, we've talked about this ad nauseum on the show. I mean, when there seems to be an inordinate amount of mental health issues combined with homelessness in Albuquerque.
That's right.
Compared to most other cities across the country. And part of that, I think, stems from all the services are here. So when something happens in any of the outlying communities, there seems to be a van that brings you to Albuquerque and you're left. And, so I do think it's a problem in Albuquerque. And is going to continue to grow. I mean, as you drive around Albuquerque, we are becoming more and more. I mean, these tent cities are popping up everywhere, and then you add to that. Right now, that I went to a friend had a fundraiser for an organization that was trying to raise money to build homes, to build kind of an apartment complex. And then then all of a sudden we get this real estate boom, and now you can't afford to buy land. Right? I mean, you can't afford to buy land to build a homeless hotel for people now. So, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But if we don't figure out a way, we're about to really wake up in the next 3 or 4 months. It's one thing to worry about it when it's 65 or 70 degrees at night. It's another thing to discuss this when it's 18 degrees at night. And I think we're going to have some horrific news in the next few months in Albuquerque if we don't get in front of this.
Laura, over at Source New Mexico again, Patrick Lohman points out that unlike New Mexico, most states don't let landlords turn down renters with Section 8 vouchers, veteran benefits, that sort of assistance. Is it time for the law to change, or does that provision serve an important protection for landlords?
I think it's time that rule be changed, that law change, really, because if if these landlords are able to turn down the federal assistance that's out there for the landlords to deal with this issue as a result of the pandemic, they're exacerbating the homelessness problem. They're pricing people out of the market. You're creating a bigger problem, and I think it's a preventive measure that the legislature could take by changing that law. I'm really shocked and upset that so much money is being left on the table in terms of federal assistance. And the only option is going to be that they convert that into rental assistance to the tenants. But ultimately, I'm going through something like this because my sister, who's disabled and, on a fixed income, just had her rent increased $110 a month. And she's on a fixed income. So luckily, I'm able to help her, but a lot of people don't have that situation. And so, I mean, it's just unconscionable.
KOB
really.
TV is reporting that rents in Albuquerque have increased 17% over the last year. That's a huge jump. You're talking about rental income. And Michael, let me swing to you on this. Vouchers, assistance checks, under this idea of assistance. Is this just code for poor people, so to speak, and can lead to discrimination when folks walk in the door with these kind of voucher help?
Oh, well, I think discrimination has been with us for a long time and hasn't magically disappeared for many communities. And again, as you were pointing out, the housing, the rental has increased 70% and housing's gone up 12%. So that also exacerbates the issue along with rental properties.
Daniel, there are emergency assistance programs from the pandemic, but just a quarter of it has been handed out. How do we get the word out more? What has to happen to get this money moving into the people's hands that really need it?
It's not just that we got to get the word out. It's something that people are forgetting. Look, I understand Laura's situation and feel for her sister's situation, and I think that a lot of these situations, these one-off situations, we should be having conversations about. But we got to remember, a lot of this federal assistance doesn't pay the rent; it pays part of the rent. And so, sometimes you got folks that are not, folks that I've known that are landlords are saying, hey, hold on a second. The federal government wants to give me a check for X dollars, but the rental agreement they assigned for is Y dollars. And the individual is not coming up with their portion of that. And so, we've got to figure out a way, because, the answer can't be telling every private business and everything we do, you got to accept this, you got to do this. You would think that there would be opportunities for others to open up some businesses out there. Look, we got the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority down the road here that gives out no interest loans, grants to help build these facilities, to help build homes and apartments for low-income individuals. We just got to get to those folks and get working with them to get it understood. The big disconnect, though, from what I hear on a lot of the folks that own property, it's amazing, because I got folks that own property, friends of mine that own tons of homes, and they're like, look, one of the situations they've got is they got a lot of people that want to rent from them. But when they do the background check and they find out that they've been evicted from the last 3 places and they got 3 judgments on them and the house was condemned, they're like, look, I can't do this regardless of what the federal government pays. So there's got to be some education component. We've got to figure out a way to educate folks on what it means to be a good tenant. But we also have to keep in mind that there's folks out there that we have to help, right? Laura's sister's situation. What are you going to tell that young lady? Go find another $110 a month. I mean, it's impossible, and we got to figure out a way to solve this.
Good points, Dan. We're out of time. Thanks to our panelists, and we'll make sure to link those articles on our website. That is NewMexicoInFocus.org.